And with that, I'd like to introduce Lauren Hubele, who's a classically trained homeopath who has found her own way through the jungle, I would say, of gemmotherapy information. It's massive. And everybody who teaches about it brings their own lens. Chiropractors teach through their lens, and homeopaths treat through their lens, physical therapists. I mean, everybody's got like a lens that they see this through. And so you have brought a way of healing through stages 1 through 6. And you're going to introduce that to us. So why don't you go ahead?
Great, Karen. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And thanks for such a warm welcome from everyone. It's always lovely to be able to talk about your favorite subject, right? Maybe it's your grandchild or it's your favorite vacation spot. And oddly enough, for me, it's about trees and healing. I don't always make the best cocktail party partner, but in fact, I don't really get invited anymore. But I think I've found a really lovely, friendly group here that seems to be interested in this topic. So I'm very excited. I think it's important that you just understand in a couple sentences what got me here. As a classic homeopath with a very busy practice and from a lineage of melanoma cancer and being the only woman that has survived it in my entire family, I had a very special lens I brought to healing. And I saw in my practice that I could reduce symptoms, I could improve them, but I didn't see this holistic healing happen, the whole body, mind, body, and spirit. Someone's knee might have gotten better, their migraines, but then they also had 6 other issues. And this led me on a quest. It led me on a quest for my patients, but it also led me on a quest for myself, because that was a big question I always asked myself: how do we really heal? And I won't go into the whole story that got me there, but I ended up on the path of gemmotherapy. It has not left me alone for a single night of dreaming and a single day of living for 10 years. And I still am learning. I still have concepts revealed to me. These trees and their beautiful medicine continue to unfold, literally, as leaves would on the trees, their potential. And when I came up against the learning process, which isn't easy, as Karen mentioned, what I found was a very allopathic approach. And I want to define that word, although it's very familiar to most of you. In my lens and in my definition, that means I have this symptom, so therefore I take this to alleviate it. I have this symptom, then I take this to alleviate it. And that was the way gemmotherapy is taught. It's still taught like that in most of the world. In most of Europe, it's practiced by doctors only, and it is practiced very much in this way. My experience in using these extracts in my practice fell short, though, of what I was hoping to achieve, and I wasn't ready to give up on these extracts. And so through a series of events and a lot of failures, because we have to have those, and a lot of aggravations in my own body and in folks that I was that were willingly working with me as I uncovered these systems, a more holistic approach was revealed. And about 3 years ago, we added on a whole level. And just to be clear, there are only 3 levels right now. as far as I know. But thanks, Karen. Now I'm going to have to figure out what the next three are. I know they'll come. I'm hoping we can stay with three because it feels very complex. I had this information begin to rise up that we weren't addressing still the core of the issue because we weren't tapping into the nervous system. So for the last 3 years, I've been really diving deeply into the studies in all fields of the nervous system, the brain, trauma, and how this manifests in the body, and then looking at these beautiful extracts and sifting out those that work with the nervous system. And in that process, I've created a what I would call our level 1, and I'm going to open the door and introduce that to you in just a minute, of extracts that work with the nervous system, beginning with the central nervous system. So some of you don't know what gemotherapy is yet, and I've dove right in here, and I want to take a moment and introduce you to my friend Gemmotherapy here. So I think what is most important for everyone listening here is to differentiate gemotherapy from anything that you know, supplements, homeopathy, herbal remedies, pharmaceutical medications, any substance that we're putting in our body. Gemmotherapy comes in a bottle. It's an extract. In the extract, there is something that makes it very unique and that is not found in any other natural plant medicine, and that's meristem cells. And what the meristems do are three things that can only happen in a plant-based medicine if the meristem is present. And that's these three things happen simultaneously. The extracts stimulate cleaning on a cellular level, so on the organ tissue that we're working on or the organ system that we're working on, stimulate cleaning, deliver nourishment, and promote rejuvenation. All three actions simultaneously. So this is really beautiful. And this also tells you these are very powerful therapy. It's a very powerful therapy if it can do all that. And it also sounds a little bit too good to be true. But the challenge with working with gemmotherapy is learning how to apply it in the order in which the body actually heals. So
Can I interrupt with a question there, Lauren?
please, Karen.
Are meristems like we understand stem cells in humans? Are they like stem cells from plants?
That is perfect. Yes, they are. And you just continue to prompt me if I miss a cue there. Yes, they absolutely are. And that's what makes them so powerful, is their ability to communicate directly with our cells and prompt a similar action to stem cells.
Almost on a hormonal level. So like more is not always better.
More extract isn't always better. Oh yeah, but we'll get to that.
Right. Thank you.
For sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little toe dip into a very big lake of information, and hopefully in a way that will resonate with you and not feel overwhelming. But before I jump into that, I just want to make sure we understand what we're talking about. So gemmotherapy, when we use that term, it's referring to gemmo extracts. The gemmo extracts are made from fresh plant material, the part of the plant that contains the most meristem cells for that particular plant. So for many, it's the young branch buds, the buds that will turn into branches. For some, it's the rootlets. We even have extracts made from the seed of the plant, but it's where the concentration of meristem cells are. And at this time, we have a system of about 60 recognized extracts. So, from an individual standpoint or a practitioner standpoint, that's a little bit overwhelming. Where do we begin, right? How do I start? I don't feel good. I have these symptoms. Which one do I pick? And rather than looking at the extract, my experience has led me is to look at yourself or your patient, the symptoms that are presenting, but more importantly, the order in which those symptoms are going to heal. And all healing begins with the nervous system because we need to have an excellent communication system. We need to make sure that the information coming in, sensory input coming in, is received in an effective and harmonized fashion, and that information is being relayed to the organs through the autonomic system in a harmonized fashion. Now, we live today in a world where when I say the word dysregulated nervous system, more and more people are more familiar with that term. But let me just explain that a bit. Because the truth is, most of us walk around in a dysregulated state all day long. And it starts once our alarm goes off and the 24 things that we're already late and behind to do, and the other people in our household that we're trying to juggle often can send us into a state of stress. We know that word, that's a commonly used word in our language, but what does stress mean? It's actually the reaction in your autonomic nervous system moving you into a state where you can mobilize and get things done. But for many of us, that looks like a fight or flight state. And in that state, we can't focus, we can't decide how to prioritize, we lose access to parts of our brain that allow us to see the order of operations. And we lose many other facilities as well in that process, like our digestion slows and our heart rate might increase. So what we're going to do is, and I'm going to prompt you, Karen, to help me fill in anything before I get to these gemmos. What I want to do is I want to introduce you to a basic handful that you could start using right away, whether it's in your practice or on yourself, and how to use them. And this would be where I would teach anyone when they're just beginning, and it would be how, when I was seeing clients, how I began a case. So before I go into that, are there some questions just on what I've covered?
Well, I think it's an excellent place to start because people with Lyme disease often have hypersensitivity where sounds and smells and touch can just drive them crazy. They present with feelings like their brain is buzzing or their heart is buzzing, or um, often they have irregular bowel movements. So I just think it's an excellent place to start, Lauren.
Okay, great, great. Now, I want to assure you, we're only scratching the surface, because at the end of the day here, I think I'll share 7 extracts with you. Just within these 7 extracts, they have multiple other uses, and we have 60 extracts. But what I want you to be able to walk away with is some confidence in a few extracts that might resonate with you, like something just lights up and said, oh, that might be a good choice for me. Here's what's so beautiful about working with gemmotherapy. If we're working on this level, the subtle body level, the level of the nervous system, and we're taking microdoses, which is 1 drop, we have very little possibility of aggravating anything. When we get aggravations at this point, it's something that might happen momentarily and then it's gone. And then we may just decide, gee, that extract isn't for me now. That doesn't mean it's not for me ever. It's just not for me now. I'm not responding really well to it. And I'll give you a few examples so you're real clear on that. The other thing we have to be careful of, particularly with folks with Lyme and high sensitivities, is these do have alcohol. It is a grain alcohol, and they do have glycerin. So if either of those can be a problem, then gemmotherapy itself actually becomes a problem, because that's the only way you can make it into the type of extract it is, holding on to the potential of those meristem cells. So,
I've been asked, can they put it in a glass of water and let it sit for 20 minutes so most alcohol would evaporate and then drink it?
sure, absolutely. In fact, we have folks that do that overnight. What you cannot do is boil it. So let's go into just some practical steps here. So you're going to listen to me, you're going to find an extract, and you're going to say, wow, I really want to try that one. That really feels like the right thing for me right now. And this is how you're going to take it. You're going to take 1 drop each morning, and that's for this extract for the central nervous system. Why do we take it in the morning? Well, that's when our day starts and when our sensory input begins, right? And this extract is going to help us harmonize that sensory input. Our smells and our what we're seeing, what we're tasting, noises that are irritating us. And we want to harmonize that input. So we're going to put the 1 drop right on the tongue, follow it with a glass of liquid. You can put the drop in the glass of water, but it's 1 drop. And I feel like if we want to make sure we're getting all of the goodness in that extract, we do better putting that one drop right on our tongue. Now, once you find one that you really like and it really fills in that space that you feel is needed for support, you can combine up to 3 nervous system extracts at a time. But I teach from a very minimalistic perspective, and I would never, ever, ever give someone 3 extracts at a time. I would offer up 1 and look and see what has shifted, because these are pretty remarkable, folks. And you may say, well, gosh, I need this one, and this one. But you may not once you start one and it begins resolving some of the other symptoms. So waiting a period of a week or 2 before adding another one makes a lot of sense. If you really want to feel into it, you can wait as long as is appropriate for you, but not before a week or 2. You won't have the full essence of that extract. So this is really important, because so often when we're using something, we don't know what to look for to say it's working, right? So this is really clear here. Improvement is going to look like a harmonized effect on your sensory input. It's going to look like clarity in thoughts and focus. And when I go through each extract, it's going to look like those keynotes of the extract are resolving. So it's going to require the person taking this extract to be very aware and to be noticing, first of all, what's present that I'm trying to resolve. And really what we end up seeing with gemmotherapy more often than not is an absence of symptoms, which is an interesting way to see it. They just aren't there anymore.
And Lauren, I think with people with Lyme disease who often have 127 symptoms,
Yeah.
It's good to pick out like the top 5 and like work on those.
I would agree, but I think when we get to the extracts, we're going to pick them according to what that extract's going to work on. So I think it'll make sense in just a second here. But for harmonizing action on the central nervous system, those symptoms are related to your senses. That's what we're looking to harmonize. We're not looking to a pain in your knee getting better at that point, because we first need to bring this central nervous system in. So let's take a look at
vision might clear, hearing might make more sense. Skin might not be as hypersensitive. Those sensory symptoms might improve.
Okay, so let's take a look here. I'm going to start with dog rose, and I'm starting here because this is, first of all, an excellent extract to consider for everyone as a first extract. And all the slides are laid out this way for you. And we've got harmonizing actions, so what that extract has to offer you as a gift. The emotional keynotes are these are things I have or you might have that would say, that's a good extract for me. And then at the bottom, just any particular notes about that extract that I want to bring to your attention. So the harmonizing actions of dog rose is it neutralizes tyramine. And I believe that's of concern with many folks with Lyme. Am I right there?
Tyramine.
Tyramine.
Certainly mast cell activation, but histamines, but I'm not sure about tyramine.
Okay, and this is particularly of interest if anyone has migraines. Dog rose has been very useful. That if any foods that have that are a problem to you, particularly, and then it also reduces histamines, which I know is a great issue, and it brings into balance fragile emotional and physical states. So if you yourself are feeling fragile emotionally or physically, this is a beautiful extract to begin with. The keynotes that you would note in yourself or in your patient is the sense that one more thing added would just be the breaking point. Like you're just at that point. And a really beautiful visual for you is the blossom of the briar rose and its very fragile petals. You touch it just once with your finger and the petals all fall off. The sense of barely being able to manage and keep it together. And often folks that do well with dog rose find their security and support in others. They're looking for a partner or a practitioner to hang on to during this fragile moment. Okay? Dog rose is very effective. It responds quickly. So we find that folks only need it for short periods of time. And anytime you find yourself back in that fragile state, you can just come back to dog rose. Okay, I'm going to move on to walnut. Walnut's harmonizing action is its ability to establish a sense of boundary between your internal and your external world. So walnut does this on the physical plane in a very beautiful way, which as you study and choose to study gemmotherapy, you will learn about that. But and walnut tree itself doesn't allow anything to grow under its canopy. It's very good at setting those boundaries. What walnut does for folks is create those boundaries so that they don't become overwhelmed, overstimulated by that external world. So the emotional keynote that walnut might be a good choice for you is if the external world is perceived as a threat. It feels safer when you're alone and you actually feel a little threatened, and that might even be a strong term. You might feel ill at ease in groups or social settings. And folks that would benefit from walnut also seem to be stuck in this habitual protective pattern. Walnut's very good throughout our healing process when we find ourselves stuck emotion, like I just can't get past this, whatever this is. Walnut performs best when taken on its own. So let's just say you chose walnut and you also want some other extracts with it. The advice is to take them about 2 hours apart. So maybe perhaps you take walnut when you first get up in the morning, and 2 hours later you might have another extract that you take. Taking it together isn't dangerous. It reduces the effectiveness of it. Hops, another harmonizing extract for the central nervous system, is sedative. Out of the three I just mentioned, it's the first one that has this sedative quality. It activates GABA receptors, and it acts on both the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. It has a quite palatable calming action, and it's very quick acting. Emotional keynotes, folks, that you would see this in yourself, and hops would be a good choice for you. If you cannot achieve stillness and calm, just sitting and being makes you feel uncomfortable and you have to be up and doing something, or even active mentally. Tendency for disassociation, or if you struggle with addictions to substances that bring you down, that to come down, you reach for something. Hops is excellent for the practitioners listening. It is excellent for folks trying to get off of medications or addictive substances that have that effect. And hops is an excellent replacement. The visual I want to leave you with is of the hops vines reaching out and looking for stabilization, right? And if you've seen them grow, they're beautiful and they grow very, very fast. Fast growing plants tend to also act fast in the body, and you will get very good results quickly from this extract.
Can that one be used throughout the day as people are feeling anxious, one drop?
Yes, and I'm recommending that these aren't taken multiple times throughout the day.
Okay. Thank you.
So wild oats, the harmonizing action that it offers is to stimulate appetite. So I know a lot of folks tend to lose their appetite when they have a lot of symptoms and a lot going on. It has an adaptogenic effect to restore energy, but it's not like a boost of energy. It's a very subtle coming up underneath you, holding you energy, keeping you from dropping deeper into despair or lethargy. It's harmonizing to both the central and the autonomic nervous system. The emotional keynotes you'd want to look for is this lack of grounding. They're very disrupted by others, people coming in and shaking them up, or a phone call, or news that shouldn't be on anyway. They're in need of nurturing. Like all you want is just someone to nurture you and take care. There's a mental and emotional exhaustion present. Now, oats is an excellent extract, and it does build slowly. So should you decide that oats sounds right for you or a patient of yours, give it at least 5 days. It's unless there's some kind of emotional aggravation that bothers someone, but it needs that to build, and then that sense of grounding and rooting comes in. And the last of the harmonizers I want to share with you, and then I have a couple tonics that I just want to add in as well. The last of the harmonizers is white willow. This is a beautiful extract that does have some notes of caution. I've put at the bottom there for folks that are on blood thinning medications, allergic to aspirin, and it's not for children under 12 years of age. So I think that's important just to say that up front before you fall in love with it and decide it's the extract for you. Its harmonizing actions are on the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. It also is sedative, and it's a harmonizer for the CNS and the ANS. Its emotional keynotes is a generalized anxiety. Just, I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what it is. I'm just always anxious, which is probably most of the population these days. A sense of buzzing, you've heard folks say that, and you've experienced that. You could put your fingers on your skin and you almost feel that buzzing. An overwhelm that leads to tears or angry outbursts. White willow is very quick acting. I want to note that hops and white willow are both sedative. Many people find them absolutely fine for them to take during the day, that they're not too sedative. They can get their work done because they need to be brought down. But they can also be used instead in the evening, taken 2 hours before bedtime to help induce sleep. And we can talk about sleep another time. I have a lot I can share about that.
Lauren, I'm just going to interrupt briefly to tell you that it's about 3:44, and we know your time is short with us. So just letting you know the time of the day and the time on the clock.
Okay.
We do have 3 or 4 questions too.
Yeah. Are you okay if I hang in there a little bit?
Certainly.
Yes, we're fine.
Okay. I have 2, 3 extracts here that are tonics for the central nervous system. So I want to make sure you begin with a harmonizer, and I want that to be really clear. We don't start with a tonic action, and to understand the difference, a harmonizer brings balance, a tonic is going to push, okay? Often we think we need a push when instead we need to be brought into balance. So I think that takes some serious checking in, because we often want to be wherever we aren't right now. And what we need to do is restore ourselves, and then we can come in with that tonic. I want you to consider beginning use of a tonic only once there's some resilience created. And that means you're able to make it through the day without dysregulation of your nervous system, or it's not happening in the extremes. Gosh, I didn't feel overwhelmed at all these last few days, or I haven't lost my cool about anything. This is resilience. That doesn't mean we're not reacting. It means we're able to ride the waves of what's going on. On these extracts, again, it's just 1 drop. It's in the AM. These are, again, for the central nervous system, but they're going to boost the action of the brain. We need to harmonize it first. They can be added in to a harmonizing extract, or you can decide to stop the harmonizing extract and only work with a tonic. Important to note is a tonic can over-tonify. There's no break on it. It's going to keep boosting the action. Whereas a harmonizer, when we bring into balance, we're always checking in and seeing what's needed. It's very different action. So silver birch seed is a very special extract that everyone should have on their toolkit with lime. Its tonifying action is an adaptogen for mental and emotional stress, and it actually provides nourishment for the brain. Out of all the tonics, this is the one that's truly a brain food. It sharpens memory and inhibits tyrosinase, protecting the dopamine levels. The emotional keynotes are mental exhaustion, scattered thoughts, and lack of motivation. Now, there's probably many people on this call right now that could identify with all three of those. And so my recommendation is work with one of the harmonizers, and then you can bring this in a couple weeks. The beautiful thing about silver birch seed is it can be taken for very long periods of time. And just an important note, it's been very successful for anyone who's lost their sense of taste and smell during COVID. Sea buckthorn is a big favorite of many of my practitioners. I think everyone that has taken it falls in love with it. Its tonifying action is it's a powerful antioxidant actions, particularly on the brain. It does protect brain cells, and it protects dopamine and acetylcholine. Its emotional keynotes, very important. Folks that could benefit from this tend to have a sensitivity to darkness and also to cold. They may be experiencing a lack of joy in their life and a lack of clarity, particularly in the mornings. Some of us hit that lack of clarity as the day goes on. That might be some of the other extracts that have that adaptogen effect, like silver birch seed or oats, where sea buckthorn, really it's that lack of clarity in the morning that it takes care of. It can be taken continuously for extended periods of time, just like silver birch seed. And I have one more, and then we'll open up for some questions. Gray alder is a new extract to our system of working with the central nervous system, and I am a big fan of this extract, and I couldn't help but pop it into this presentation today. Its tonifying action is as an antioxidant. Also, it improves cerebral circulation and restores deteriorated tissue. Now, you'll notice the other two talked about protecting the tissue, but gray alder actually has a restorative quality to it. It also protects dopamine levels. It's emotional.
So Lauren, we'd think of this one for people who have the brain fog from Lyme, that they just can't remember anything, right?
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for bringing that up. Its emotional keynotes are for folks that revert to that habitual response of fight or flight when mobilized. So I need to get up and get things going, but I get real scattered and disorganized and end up losing my focus there. Focus is challenged as energy levels drop. Gray alder's very good at preserving the energy levels. And for folks that feel overwhelmed from external sources, and that could be folks you're living with, just cause you to feel overwhelmed. This extract, unlike the other two tonics, should be monitored in the length of time. You can take a microdose for up to 3 months, but then you'd want to rotate it out with its relative common alder, which is also improving cerebral circulation, but not as deep acting. So we give it a little break. You never take gray alder alone, like you would never prescribe it only as an extract, or we never give it during pregnancy or breastfeeding or with anticoagulants because it's a blood thinner. I gave you a lot.
Is this okay in children?
Yeah, for children over 6.
Thank you.
Great. So I'm going to stop sharing. And let's say, I don't want to take up all your time. I could stay till 1:15. Is that about right to get the questions? And I'll sit back and let you field questions.
All right.
Okay, Jane has the questions came from the chat.
Yes, I do. First, we have, what is the cost for the intake to get started? And do all of the extracts cost about the same amount? And how much is that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there are many, not many, there are several producers of gemmotherapy, and so the prices range. I want to recommend folks to make sure that if they're buying from someone other than the product that I want to offer to you, is that you be sure it's a D1 extract, that it's a diluted version, because you can't microdose a concentrate. These extracts run $14.50 for a bottle of extract, and you're taking 1 drop, and there's 1.7 ounces. It will last a long time. There was a second part to that question.
Actually, no, nope, you covered it. You covered it. Next question
So
is,
what does the intake cost if you're doing an intake with a consultant?
Yeah, so I think that's going to vary. I'm going to put into chat some recommended practitioners, and I think I hate to quote something prices, because I honestly am not sure. So
I want to say like very affordable compared to Lime Docs.
okay,
Maybe a fifth the price, about a fifth the price, I think.
ready for the next?
And I did ask,
Oh.
I did ask Lauren, I told her like the complex patients we see and who would she recommend. She had 3 people that are on her website, www.laurenhubele.com, and she's got consultants listed, but she's going to add the people that she thinks might be particularly helpful to our group, to our chat.
I just put it in.
Terrific, thank you.
Thanks.
Are the extracts gluten-free?
That's a great question. They are not certified gluten-free. The grain is from corn, although corn is gluten-free, it's not from a certified gluten-free source. So if someone has an extreme sensitivity, that could be an issue. I have a sensitivity to gluten, and I've been taking these for 10 years and never had an issue. But I have come across folks that have a sensitivity to it, whether it's the alcohol, glycerin, or what, I'm not sure.
Thank you. Is there somewhere a chart that outlines or describes what each extract addresses?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So there are lots of authors out there that have written about gemmotherapy, and they're coming from a different perspective. The materia medica that needs to be published, I haven't completed yet. I do run a learning center or learning platform where I have a online materia medica where it outlines each extract and what it covers. But also on my website, on the store, there are descriptions, quite extensive descriptions of each extract and what their potential is.
So for instance, when I go searching for an extract, I'll look for hops gemmotherapy, and a couple of websites will come up repeatedly that have much of what's written in some of the texts that I've purchased. The Ledoux text that is now selling for $3,500 on Amazon. Yeah, there's lots of textbooks, but they're hard to make it through. The internet is great to help look up these gemmotherapies. And your website has these little things called Gemmo Memos that in 7 to 10 minutes, they can find out about the plant and about the gemmotherapy and about the Chinese traditional medicine perspective on it.
Yeah, there's a whole library of podcasts on my website that are available free to anyone. Thanks, Karen, for mentioning the Gemmo Memos. And we cover one extract at a time, and you can learn about them. You know, I do want to caution folks about, just because there is continual information coming out. I'm working with a team of researchers in Romania, and how we're seeing this these extracts continue to emerge. So finding something on the website, on the web, and knowing how old it is, I think that's really important because we have new science that is constantly being produced.
When I search, your website pops up first, Lauren. So that's
Oh,
usually a good.
yay. It's a win.
All right, next question. What if you have tested positive by an allergist to, for example, birch trees? Can you take those gemotherapy drops, or not?
Yeah, so what you're allergic to is the pollen, right? And it would be, I would give you the same answer if you said, hey, I'm allergic to walnuts. Can I take the extract? So the extract is from not the bud that makes the fruit or nut, but the bud that makes the branch. And there is no evidence to show that that would cause an allergy.
Right. How long does it take to notice improvement? This would not be a replacement for Lyme, correct, but rather an add-on. I assume they meant Lyme treatment.
Do you want me to go ahead and just start answering
Well,
that?
I'm gonna say that I'm not suggesting that gemotherapy replace treatment of Lyme disease. Lauren might, from her lens, see that you might not need your treatment for Lyme disease if your brain and your nerves and your vagus and your sympathetic fight or flight and protective systems are all working together, and so you are detoxing every day, and all your senses are open. From the perspective I see it, it opens you up to healing more quickly from other points of view, and certainly acupuncture and integrative medicine seems like a good fit with gemotherapy.
Yeah.
And Lauren, you can give your perspective.
Yeah, well, I think you covered it beautifully. If we're working with the nervous system and in the extracts I just covered, you should begin seeing shifts within days. And the shifts, the improvement continues over weeks and months and taking these. The lens from gemotherapy is about bringing the body into harmony. And we can't do that if we're taking a lot of other substances that control how the body operates. So over time, and that could be years, working with a gemo practitioner, someone may be shifting out of the need for supplements, but in this case, and for what the extracts I'm presenting, these are on top of, in addition to what you're already working with.
All right, someone asks for clarity on the question about corn. The question is, did you say the extracts are derived from corn?
No, so in each extract, the extraction process uses an alcohol that is a corn-based alcohol.
Terrific, thank you.
Next, and I just want to say I'm very allergic to corn. Like I get rheumatoid arthritis type swelling from corn, and I don't get any of that from these extracts.
Thank you. Are both walnut and black walnut used in gemotherapy? And if so, what is the difference?
Oh, great question. They both are not used. This is the English walnut. And when we're referring to black walnut, we're referring to an herbal extract. So that extract won't have the meristem cells in it. And that's going to change the whole action. And remember, going back to the second slide about the 3 actions the meristem cells offer. So we want to make sure that, there's quite a bit of difference between any herbal extract and the same plant as a gemotherapy.
All right. The only other question had to do with the availability of these slides, and Dorian has put a note in the chat about that. The presentation will be available on the MLA website. So for those of you who might have other questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat now.
I'm going to maybe, I was watching quite a few of the videos you've got in your library yesterday, and my understanding of a harmonizer is that when the autonomic system and the peripheral nervous system and the brain all talk to each other, that might resolve sleep, that might resolve constipation, that might resolve anxiety and depression, that might resolve peripheral neuropathy, numbness in the fingers and toes. It might resolve loss of sense of taste and smell. So a lot of symptoms that people have might resolve when all the nerves are speaking to each other. Am I getting that right?
You are getting that exactly right. Yes, yes. So we often find we don't have to go in and directly work with that symptom or that organ. Working with the nervous system for quite some time can resolve a considerable amount of symptoms. When we go in and do the work with the organs, we're taking care of deterioration at that point and restoring. Great, thanks, Karen. So thank you all for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us, Lauren. It was just great. I hope you come back another time and talk to us about what Gemmo is doing with COVID, because I've
Oh,
just sent 3 people that were deathly ill and nobody could do a thing about it. And within 3-4 days, their symptoms were turned around, and now a week later, they're back in the world.
yeah,
So that was really amazing to me.
yeah. We have a wonderful protocol for COVID.
We do have one last question, if you don't mind, before you sign off, and that is, are there any gemmotherapy recommendations for nerve damage?
Yes, yes, absolutely. First of all, you're going to work with with the extracts that I shared. So all of those are going to be helping with getting the communication going. And we want to get the communication going because the body often begins healing itself. When we still have nerve damage, then we're going to look to something like field maple. And then we have a few other extracts in there, but field maple's the one that I would recommend, but not right off the bat, starting with the central nervous system.
Thank you.
And when you talked about harmonizing actions in the CNS and ANS, but that would include the peripheral nervous system
Yeah.
too, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
So that would be when Lauren's notes said CNS and ANS, that also includes the peripheral nerves.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All right. Bye-bye now.